Welcome back to the channel. Today we have something very important to talk about in the world of Stranger Things. This can literally ruin the ending of the show. Thankfully, the Duffer Brothers have confirmed how Season 5 will not end, and lucky for us, it is one of the worst possible ways they could end the show, and we know for sure that it's not going to happen. With shows like Stranger Things that get so big and massive, there's a lot of money to be made with each new season they make. From advertisers to merchandise to streaming subscriptions and games and spin-off shows, there is so much money large shows like this can make up until a certain point. Once the content and story in each new season starts to feel less true to the original show, it becomes watered down, and oftentimes ends up going in a direction that the original fans are not happy with. And if whoever is funding the show doesn't like the low viewership, they might cancel the show, forcing the writers to tie up all the loose ends in a short, rushed final season, which almost always doesn't end well for anybody. The fans get a crappy ending to their favorite show, and the writers don't get to give their story and characters their true ending. But fortunately for us, the Duffer Brothers have chosen to end Stranger Things on their own terms, and it is looking like Season 5 will be the biggest season yet. This means the characters and the story will thankfully get their true ending that the Duffers personally want. This is the best possible scenario, and now the big question is raised of how will they end it, and will it be good? What if at the end of Season 5, everyone comes together in a huge massive battle to defeat Vecna, where people die and Will sacrifices himself and Eleven closes all the portals for good? And then it fades out to black where we hear Mike narrating the ending of a D&D campaign, and it cuts back to the kids from Season 1 finishing up one of their sessions. It would be a crazy twist, but honestly, I think this would be an awful ending if they actually did this. Not only would it take away from all the gravity the show held of being real and make all the character deaths and sacrifice we've cried over not worth it, but it would just kind of leave us unsatisfied with a bad taste in our mouths. I would rewatch the show with an altered final episode where the end reveal is just completely edited out. So there is still bad endings the show could possibly have. This specific ending of it all just being one of the kids' D&D games was actually brought up to the Duffer Brothers in an interview while they were in London to see the first Shadow, and they both kind of laughed it off.
They're just playing one big game of Dungeons and Dragons, and none of it is real. What do you make of that?
That is correct. That is the ending. No. That would be the equivalent of like it was all a dream. No, I assure you that is not how we're going to end the show.
Now, while this is a relief knowing we don't have to worry about this particular ending, I am still worried about all these other awful endings for the show. By now, I think it's more than safe to trust the Duffer Brothers will give us a good ending, but one of these bad endings has partially been true throughout each season, so I am a bit worried. If you enjoy the Stranger Things videos, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. We've got Stranger Things Day coming up soon, and if they treat it like they have in the past, we're going to get a lot of new Season 5 teases that you're not going to want to miss. Because I don't want a Game of Thrones ending. Luckily, the Duffer Brothers are ending the show on their own terms. Sure, you could probably milk it for another 2 to 3 seasons, but it would slowly get watered down, and the fans would definitely notice. Hopefully, ending it like they are with Season 5 will keep the quality high so the overall rewatchability of the show is still great, so you can enjoy every season when you rewatch it. I feel like anyone rewatching Game of Thrones is just entirely skipping the finale season. Or Umbrella Academy. Ever since the final season came out, the entire subreddit has been memeing on it, saying it doesn't exist, complaining it was so bad they had to rewatch the first 3 seasons just to forget about the 4th one. So fingers crossed we have the opposite happen with Stranger Things and we get the best ending ever. So now, besides the D&D campaign ending and a Game of Thrones ending where the show gets canceled and the last season is rushed and they botch everyone's characters, I think the next worst ending is if Vecna wins. If they try to pull one over on us and give us an ending we don't expect just to subvert our expectations, I don't want to see all hope ripped away from us after Will's sacrifice and Mike is pushing 11 and they're about to beat him. I don't want to see him kill everybody and unleash the Upside Down on the entire world. I mean, if we're talking in the Stranger Things universe, it's entirely possible for Vecna to win. The biggest reason he wouldn't is because it's a show, and I don't think anyone would be happy if after 9 years, that's how the show ends. This isn't Avengers Infinity War. There's not going to be an endgame in a couple years. Season 5 is the endgame. They referred to Season 4 as their Empire Strikes Back, where the villain kind of has won. All of the heroes for the most part are okay. They take some hard hits, yeah, but overall the villain comes out on top. But you know what comes after that? The next installment is where the good guys win. Luke overthrows the Emperor, the Avengers kill Thanos. This is the end. I want the good guys to win. I want the kids to finally beat Vecna and for Will to be free from his curse. I want the town of Hawkins to realize how big of a threat was under their nose the entire time, and to honor all the people we lost along the way that were brave enough to stand up and fight and sometimes sacrifice themselves to save their friends. I think another ending that would be awful is if Callie returns. More specifically, if she plays a large part in killing off Vecna. Because honestly, I think when they gave her an entire episode in season 2, they were testing the waters for a possible spin-off show. Because it would be a very different vibe from Eleven's story and the entire show we have now, with her gang of misfits hunting down scientists that tested on her for vengeance or possibly to uncover more details about her past. But it would still very much be rooted in the world. I feel like every time the Duffers talk about spin-off shows they're working on, they make it clear that they won't be about Eleven and Mike and Hopper and the already existing cast we love. It will be in the same universe, but follow a new story with new characters. And a Callie spin-off would be pretty close to that. I don't think they could have known how poorly the episode was going to be received. I mean, maybe if it was earlier in the season and not right before the finale, people would have liked it a little better, but still probably not enough to warrant her own show. But I mean, earlier this year, everyone was talking about Callie possibly returning for season 5 because Noah Schnapp followed Linnea Berthelsen, the actress that plays Callie, on Instagram. It could be completely random, but what if they finally met on set for season 5 or something? It's not impossible. Personally, I don't think this would be a great way to end the show. They could do something where Eleven returns to her for more of her training before she goes up against Vecna one last time, or they could have her personally come team up with Eleven and fight alongside her. But honestly, I think after 2 very long seasons without Callie, I'd be totally fine to not see her again. I would much rather Eleven and the kids defeat Vecna on their own for the sake of the story. The Duffers have already said they're going back to the season 1 group and focusing on the original gang, so hopefully this means no Callie. But honestly, there's no guarantees. With Will being a larger key this season, for all we know, Eleven could take him to Chicago to go see Callie, so she could train him the way she trained Elle and help Will realize his true powers. It's not impossible, that's all I'm saying. Tell me in the comments how much you would love or hate to see them bring Callie back. Part of me thinks they would never try it after the bad reaction to her first appearance, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they figured out a way to bring her back for a little bit and wrote the part she plays in the story better and redeemed her character. Now next, I think another awful ending to the show is if they introduced time travel, and more specifically if they used it to beat Vecna. I think this has got to be one of the ones with the least chance of actually happening just because of how big time travel is to introduce at the very end of a 5-season show. But there are elements of time being played with in the show already. There's some weird things happening with the Upside Down being stuck on November 6, 1983, the day Will went missing. The Upside Down has just completely been frozen in time, and they said they're going to explain that in season 5. But I really don't want them to pull an endgame where they go up against Vecna and lose to him in season 5, so they have to go back in time to beat him, or stop him in the past from turning bad and save him from being pushed into the portal by young Eleven or something. I feel like all you would have to do is go back to 1958 when he was being all weird and moody in school and just be his friend. Pretend he's not weird, maybe save him from Brenner testing on him. I mean, honestly, his weird twisted view of reality might need to be treated even further back, just take him to therapy or something. It could be some sort of childhood trauma from his parents in some way. Honestly, I think this is too messy to introduce in the finale of the show. We've only got 8 episodes this season, and I really don't want to spend all of them in the past. That would just feel like a waste of the season. Plus, I'm not a fan of when they try to rewrite past events in the show, so how we originally watched them doesn't exist or are in a different timeline now. I don't think they would do this, but it definitely is one of the worst ways it could go. Now, this next ending might be a bit controversial because this might be the perfect ending in some people's head, but if it happens, I think this would be another awful way to end the show. And that is if no one dies. Yup, I know at the end of the day, you want all of these characters they made us fall in love with to live on and have their amazing dream lives. But this is Stranger Things. This is what Stranger Things is. They make you fall in love with a character, build them up to be this amazing person or redeemed hero after all this time, and then what happens? They kill them off. Yeah, it's emotional and very sad, but you know what? We love these characters so much more after they've died. We love how brave they were to be so selfless and heroic to sacrifice themselves to save the ones they loved. It's usually characters that they've built these amazing character arcs into, and as sad as it is to see them go, it's just as beautiful to remember who they were. And lucky for us, it's a show, so we can always go back and rewatch it to appreciate them more. But honestly, no main characters have died. Bob, Billy, and Eddie were the biggest characters that have died so far. None of the main cast of characters have died, and we've talked about why. The Duffer Brothers didn't want to kill a crucial character of the show off because all the rest of the characters and the entirety of the show would be changed forever moving forward. Everyone would carry that burden and trauma, and they would have to be happy with that being Stranger Things going on. And they weren't. But this is literally the endgame. They can kill off any main character and they only have to show the trauma and deal with that for this season only. And if it's a finale death, it's just one episode. And there are so many people in Vecna's crosshairs, we almost expect Eleven to have to sacrifice herself to close the portals. It's almost poetic that she's the one it started with. And the same with Will to a certain extent. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays a much larger role being connected with Vecna, and I'm so worried about him. David Harbour just said that Noah Schnapp's performance in the finale episode brought everyone to tears. Everyone was sobbing. It's not looking good for him at all. And I mean, if Vecna needs to distract Elle or take someone she loves from her, he could easily kill off Mike or Hopper, and it would be so emotional. Can you imagine if Vecna is going after Will and Jonathan steps in and saves him, sacrificing himself? That would be so emotional. He's the only one that knows Will's secret about his feelings for Mike, and losing Jonathan would be devastating for Joyce. Not to mention, Steve has been in the Duffers' crosshairs for 4 seasons now. He was originally supposed to die in season 1, and they spared him, but ever since then, he's gotten the short end of the stick every season. But it's always trying to protect the kids. If he sacrifices himself to save the kids, it would ruin us. Max, if they kill off Max and read those letters she wrote to everyone, I'm gonna need a couple boxes of tissues. There's so many main characters they could easily kill off that would make for such a good ending of the story. It would be a crime if no one died. I think it would be so unsatisfying. Realistically, I'm sure they'll kill someone off, especially with how emotional everyone keeps saying the finale is, but still, no deaths would be a bad ending. Now, before we get to the final worst ending to the show, I want to add a couple of honorable mentions in. These I feel like they have close to no chance of actually happening, but I still wouldn't hold your breath and felt like since we're doing a video on them, they should definitely be included. Now, honestly, I feel like if they do an ending where Vecna turns good, that would be awful. I think by now they have very much so built up how evil and bad Henry/Vecna is. The countless people he's killed, his view on the world saying that humanity is a plague, essentially wanting to kill everything. He is a bad person. I don't see them hinting at any bits of good left in him, but I don't want to see Eleven save him from himself and the Upside Down just so he can turn good right before he dies or something. I don't want him to sacrifice himself and almost be a good guy in the end. He hates Eleven. He's been trying to kill her ever since she refused to join him in 1979. I know we talked about time travel too, and this is so close to that, them going back and preventing him from being bad, but I think this is worse. They need to defeat him. No good ending for Vecna, please. Next, I don't want to see Eleven sacrifice herself to close the portal, lose her powers, and be stuck in the Upside Down all alone forever. I think seeing her actually sacrifice herself and get killed off would be better than that. It would be so unfinished, like everyone thinks she's dead, but she's locked in a never-ending prison that she can't escape from. I feel like a person can only last so long in the Upside Down though. Will was looking really bad after just a week, so I guess the torture wouldn't last forever, but still, it wouldn't feel satisfying in the slightest. No one would know how she truly died and that she suffered for another week or two alone, feeling helpless and weak. This is a cup of depresso that we don't want from the show. That's an ending that HBO would give us. Alright, next up, and this is no better than the last, but anyways, next up is them bringing back any dead characters for no reason. This includes Barb, Billy, Bob, Alexi, anyone that they kill off in the finale. If they kill off Max in Vecna's mind and she doesn't make it back, I want it to stay the way it is. I don't want them to psych us out for shock value and then undo what they just did. It's going to give everyone else unnecessary plot armor that will take away any sense of danger and possibility that anyone might actually die. Disney just did this in Star Wars. Lightsabers used to be a deadly weapon that would kill people, and now in the last 2 years or so, there's been 5 people that have survived direct lightsaber stabs, even a young child. Now lightsabers don't seem dangerous, or like if you get stabbed by one, it doesn't mean anything. And I don't want Stranger Things to follow in their footsteps. Eddie is the only one that has the slightest possibility of being okay to bring back because it fits and already exists in the world of D&D. They would just have to write it in well and make sure it doesn't feel like fan service. And even that I'm on the fence about. Now, since that wraps up the last of the honorable mentions, this is the final way that would be the worst ending to Stranger Things. And that would be if it ends on any sort sort of cliffhanger. I would hate to see a 5 or 10 years later ending where you think everything is said and done, Vecna's defeated, portals are closed, they saved the day, and are now living happily ever after until, wait, the lights start flickering. Will grabs the back of his neck and looks up at a dark sky, and then cut to black and the credits roll. That would be so bad. It would be just as bad as all the other endings that feel unfinished or like something was swept out from underneath our feet. In this instance, it would not only be the finale battle, Vecna's death, all the people that end up dying along the way or sacrificing themselves, but also the entire show. Everything we have been working towards since season 1, all for nothing. I hate to bring it up again, but a great example of someone who just did this recently was Disney. In the original Star Wars, you spend 6 full movies trying to overthrow and kill Emperor Palpatine. He is the ultimate bad guy, and by the ending of the 6th movie, the main character of the saga wins. He kills the bad guy, and everyone goes back to being happy. And then surprise!
Somehow Palpatine returned.
The threat is just back all of the sudden, and for no reason or no explanation. I mean, you can see the backlash from the fans in the state that the franchise is in right now, and it's not good. Doing this with Stranger Things would be just as bad, and I would hate to see it happen. Thankfully, the Duffer Brothers have said for a while now that they have known how the show is going to end, at least back since season 4, and are pretty happy with it. They just needed to figure out all the middle parts of how they were going to get there, and they said they're pretty happy with the ending, which makes me happy. While it was fun to talk about all of the nightmare endings for the show, I trust that the Duffer Brothers will end their show on the best note possible. Tell me what your worst ending is in the comments, and if you're subscribed, I will see you in the next one. Peace.